Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
What's going on, everybody out in the podcast world? Hope you're having a wonderful day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery podcast. I'm your host, Tersh Blissett, sitting alongside my virtual co-host, Joshua Crouch. So today, we are going to be talking numbers, average ticket prices. What's your average ticket price on your ticket, your service ticket, your install ticket, and why do those numbers even matter? So I'm super excited to have Miss Tammy Vasquez from BDR. You've probably heard of BDR, or Business Development Resources. They're a coaching organization based out of Seattle, right?
Yep, right at SeaTac near the airport, Washington.
Yeah, I knew you were. Fun fact, those who have watched and followed and listened to the podcast for a while have heard Bruce on the show last year. I was honored to have Bruce. Prior to that time, it had probably been about 4 or 5 years since I had spoken with him. And BDR was a major influence in how I was developed as a service technician, as a service manager, install manager. Like that is really where I learned the nuts and bolts of how to, create a profitable service department, a service department that could carry the overhead of the entire company. It's weird to say stuff like that, but that made such a huge, massive impact on my life as a service technician. As a service manager and now a business owner. 8 for 10 report. Man, I just think back to whenever, I love thinking about all that stuff, but super awesome. And I'm super excited to have you on the show today, Tammy.
Thank you. That means a lot to us. I love hearing those stories, and it's just so meaningful to us because, that's what we do. We work so hard to change people's lives, and to know that history and that connection is great. It's such a great feeling.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. And for those who don't know, what is BDR? What do y'all do? And how can you, as a service company, is it primarily focused on HVAC or other trades?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we definitely focus on the core trades, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. We do have some other service type industries that we've worked with over the years, but primarily we focus on coaching, and we have a training division as well that teaches classes all over the country. And those are knowledge-based type transfer things, where you're learning how to build out building a residential maintenance program, labor management. They're really, really specific courses. But on the coaching side, we have head coaches, service coaches, labor, install, sales. It's a wide variety. And so we coach clients from startups, that do 500,000 to very well-established companies doing 20, 30 million. They might have some certain pain points, specifically maybe like a service department. We need to come in and assist them with that, or work through the future of preparing that business for sale. So it's quite a variety of clients, and that's what makes it so amazingly exciting and never a dull moment. That's for sure.
It was really awesome for me because whenever, so Fred Kennedy, he was the guy who trusted me to become a service manager, and I had literally zero experience at all. He was like, all right, so here's the BDR folders, read those, and that's what you do. And so it was 100% like ignorance is bliss. There was no bad habits to get rid of because I literally didn't know what to do. I flew out of Seattle a couple of times, and they're like, why do you do it like that? Like, how did you like make the commitment to just, both feet, just jump in there and do it? I was like, I didn't know any way. Like, I literally took the BDR book and was reading it because I had no idea what else to do because Google wasn't really a thing back then. it was really an awesome experience. And I love that whole thing. And can you imagine as a business owner, your service department, which is a lot of times a loss leader for your install department? Could you imagine the service department, the profit from that carrying the overhead of the entire business? So then all your net profit from your install department goes straight to the bottom line. Like it's wild to think about. And like I was the service manager for like 2 years, maybe 3 years, and we had an on-site, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna rock this thing. Like we're doing everything right. We're killing it. And the moment Angela walked in, she was our service coach. She walked in and she said, "What is that?" And looked in the corner, and I was like, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's nothing." And she was like, "Oh no, what is that?" And it was like 40 or 50 compressors sitting there. And she was like, "Is that training or are those warranty compressors?" I was like, "Oh, those are warranty compressors. Don't worry about those." She was like, "Oh no, that's where we're headed right now." And I was like, "Man, I thought I was about to rock this thing. She's come over here and it's like finding all my skeletons in the closet." So yeah, it really is an awesome thing. And I didn't think about the warranty claims. It was like $50,000 or $60,000 worth of stuff
Yes.
in this corner that we just needed to return under warranty. So like, we're going to talk about numbers, we're going to talk about average tickets, but little things like that, having that coach come on site and you see the same thing over and over again every day, and it becomes something you just ignore. And having someone else come on site, it really made a massive difference for us.
Yeah, it makes a difference. And when you look at all those aspects and you see the companies that may be at 10, 11% net, but once they get that service department turned around, those are the companies that are in our profit coach family that are doing, 16 to 23% net, overall, and they become much more of a referral based type of business. Mm-hmm. And they're not as subject to the, ebbs and flows, economy or weather or anything like that. So yeah, the service department definitely makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, with my extremely long introduction, I'd love to hear about you and everything that you do within BDR.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I've been at BDR about 13 and a half years. It'll be 14 in December. And so in my senior head coach role, I'm responsible for our coach team, and I still have a few clients that I coach. But prior to that, I was focused on head coaching in my role. And then even prior to that, I'll probably age myself at this point because I entered the industry much like you with what is this really all about, and took a territory manager job with no HVAC experience whatsoever. I had to ask my dad, I go, "What's HVAC?" When I applied for the job, and then you get into the industry and it's so amazing and you meet all these people and one thing leads to another. And then I had bought into a company and was a part owner in a HVAC retail business, primarily focusing on residential service and change outs. And then fast forward, here I'm at BDR, and it's been an amazing journey. Coaching is my calling, and where I see so many opportunities to assist and support clients of all sizes, and ultimately change their life. I mean, that's what we do. That's our whole focus. So at BDR.
So how long have you been in the trades in total? Or
25 years.
Okay, I was going to say, I already not want to answer that question.
Nah, I'm not embarrassed about that. Yeah, I actually
started
it's
really
25.
young, right?
Yeah, when I was 10. No, I was kidding. 25. Yeah, 25 plus years. So from starting out at the territory manager side of things, and then working over into the ownership side of a business, and then here at BDR. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So tell me how, first off, little rabbit hole, how do you get in to be a TM with zero experience? Like that's kind of like answering a help wanted ad, and it's like, oh, by the way, you need to learn all this stuff too, because you're going to be the go-to person for these people.
Yeah, it's interesting. A guy, Daryl Turner, had taken a chance, and I got in actually on the refrigeration side, a refrigeration wholesaler side. And I took, because I have a sales and marketing background, I actually had worked in the software industry when I was first out of college, and the Silicon Valley in California, near where I live. And that sales and marketing experience and looking at dealer development was really the focus of it. And so I took the training courses to learn high side, low side, to get to understand what the whole refrigeration cycle was. so I could go talk the talk. I'm not afraid to climb on a roof, and do what we needed to do. So yeah, and I learned on the commercial side and then moved into working for specifically heating and air conditioning manufacturers. So, and that's where the dealer development is where I really found my passion and building out those, working alongside those owners to take advantage of all the manufacturer programs and things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. So let's dive deep into average tickets. Like, why is it important for us to even care what our average ticket price is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the average ticket tells a lot. It tells a story, right? And I think really what it does is it tells the story of, as a team, or say ownership management. Really, it tells a story about what are we doing with our labor, right? That's an indicator to say, how efficient are we really being with our time of the technicians. So the average ticket is definitely a great indicator towards forecasting future revenues. If we know what our average ticket is and we find out how many calls our capacity, and building out goals for that. But the average ticket definitely plays a huge role in understanding what the technician is doing, with their time.
Gotcha. So how do we know if that's good or bad?
Yeah, so we definitely have benchmarks, when we're coaching clients. And, a lot of that's going to play back into for understanding really what our opportunity is. So if we've got a flat rate hour, say of $250 and, a diagnostic rate of 90, so when you get out to that call, we should be striving for at least 340, 350, on an average ticket. When I say that, I'm talking about all tickets, combined, if you were just to take all the revenue, because there's times they're going to be running maintenance calls. They might be doing some callbacks. And so that is usually like a great start, or an indicator, because of the fact now you start moving into the higher average tickets. Now we can jump in and really look at, hey, is it because we're providing, options for clients on their repairs, accessories? So there's a lot of things that you can do to grow that. But most importantly, you're trying to look for a baseline, to kind of get to a starting point.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to jump in right as Tersh was, and I was going to ask about the for people who are familiar with the term average ticket, but maybe they haven't started doing the math. Just a basic, what types of, like, what should they be looking at? Even if they have to use an Excel spreadsheet or write it down at this moment until they get a better software, what should they be looking at, and how can they do the basic math on that?
Yeah. So what they can do is at each day, they can tally up their tickets, for that have been submitted. The techs, let's say there's 3 techs and they each run 4 calls. So now you've got 12 tickets. I call them tickets or invoices. And then you can tally up that revenue and then just divide it by the number of calls that were run. That kind of gives you like that baseline average dollar per amount, average dollar per ticket. Uh-huh. And then you can start to do more of that billing detective process where you're going back in and examining the tickets and really looking at, hey, this technician showed up at Tammy's house, and they were there for an hour, start backing in and understanding what your revenue per hour could be. Certainly there's a lot of great software programs out there that will start to calculate those things for you. But a baseline is just take it, start it from the day to day, because it just happened yesterday. So now you can actually see how effective the technicians were, in generating revenue at that point.
So what happens? Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say this would be a great, if you guys don't have the software for this, even if you do, this would be a great morning meeting for the day prior, or a end of day meeting to go over this as a team. So that way you guys can really understand and just help each other out, because someone might have had a great day and then maybe they could share something with the rest of the team, or maybe someone has had a couple really bad days in a row and needs some pick me up, like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not converting, type of thing. That's why it's so important to know this stuff.
Yeah. And so is it good or bad to split those up in departments? Like, should we have a maintenance department and a service department and an install department and split those average ticket prices between them?
Yeah, definitely. If you can departmentalize your financials, even if you started with, say, just an install department and say service can encompass maintenance as well. if somebody wants to open up an IAQ division, when you're looking at the benchmarks, all service related work is going to fall into, certain levels of target ranges for labor and materials. Install is going to be very different. So if you can separate it, as clients are coming on program, if they have to have a blended, consolidated financial just to help them get started, then we can coach to that and coach through that. But ultimately, yeah, you definitely want to have it departmentalized.
So I asked this earlier, and I love what you said about it is, what happens if we are just killing it and we are really doing good with our average ticket price? Like my average ticket price is $1,200 or $800, or, I mean, cause you mentioned 300, 350. Is there a point to where it's too much?
Yeah. And that 350 is kind of like a baseline, right? When you look at all tickets, if they're running warranty and, callback work in there too, or maintenance again. But when you jump into those higher average tickets of $1,200, I'd say high quality problem, right? So, but you got to dig. You have to really, if I'm the service manager or owner, I want to review those tickets every day because I want to see where that tech is spending their time and the information that they're sharing with the client. Does that align with our core values and processes? Because does it make sense to repair, a 12-year-old system and have the client spend $2,500? Did we do right by them by not explaining the option for the replacement? And I think that's where it draws back to the processes, draws back to leadership, and managing all of that.
What happens as a technician, or say I'm managing technicians, I'm a service manager, and a technician comes to me and says, look, man, I'm not a sales guy. I fix it. I'm going to provide options to fixing this. And that's it. Like, that's just what I do. I don't sell stuff. Even most of the times you don't hear providing options. He's like, I go there, I find the problem and I fix it. And so what do you have for that conversation there?
I know. I love that one, especially when you're on site in person with them. And I just say, absolutely, you are not a salesperson. I do not want you selling. It's not your job. It's truly not your job to sell. You are a craftsman. You're an expert. You diagnose. I mean, again, that kind of goes back more into the training. And I think that's where a lot of times ownership may miss the mark in that we just think, hurry up, here's a brochure, go offer this, do that. And I think really it's going to have to boil back down to the company values. And for ownership, or when I say ownership / leadership, it could be a service manager, right? That they need to be able to explain the why. And if they have a process, because we do this, we coach to this, good, better, best, fantastic repair options. But one of them should be the turnover from the technician back over to the sales department. But I'm talking concierge approach. It has to be the techs calling in, doing a proper handoff, making sure that the appointment gets, scheduled out for the homeowner so they don't have to wonder, is that guy going to call me or gal going to call me, or am I going to hear back from the company, type of thing. When he or she leaves, that appointment should be set. But I got off on track a little bit. But when you have those options and you're able to really explain them to the client, then you're there to assist them. If I'm a technician and I'm speaking to techs, you're there to guide them in that buying decision process. You're not there to sell them anything.
Yeah. So you literally are the concierge there. That's what I love hearing that part of it. So you're saying we need to have a very clear future of when the comfort specialist is going to arrive on site. So we're already setting that appointment up. So it's not like they get in the van and they're doing their debrief and they're like, oh, by the way, they didn't want to do anything. I got a diagnostic only, and have Jim call them and schedule time to come out there and give them a price.
No, because the thing is that if you think about, if I think about processes, in an organization and building that cohesiveness as a team, each person should tee it up for the next, right? So if I'm the technician and I'm talking to Tersh and I'm saying, hey, you're really I'm going to get this appointment booked for you. And Josh is going to come out and meet with you. You're going to love Josh. He's extremely thorough. He's going to walk the house with you. You know what I'm saying? And kind of set the mind of what to expect. And then, of course, as the appointments they can put the CSR or dispatcher on the phone and confirm, like, yes, Josh will be out at X time, or something like that, just to finalize it. So, or if it's for a future appointment in the next day or so, then doing the normal process with the text reminders or email reminders and that type of thing. So it just comes full circle.
So you said there, I love what you said about each person tees it up for the next person. Who would the service tech or the service expert tee it up for if they were not doing it for a salesperson? Like, I love that thought process. But if it's not something they do on every single call, it's very difficult to keep it implemented when it's needed. So are they teeing up for the happy call, or
yeah, there's a lot to it, right? When you're looking at the whole closeout process of a call, of a service call to begin with. And so in a lot of programs, where they've got a really nice dispatching software, you can create those steps in there and it becomes part of the checklist. That way, if our technicians are used to, looking at a wiring diagram, step 1, 2, 3, then you utilize the same concept with a checklist that makes it easy. Boom, check a box. And then that cues it up for them to remember to do those things.
As long as it doesn't become death by checklist.
You would never do that, Tersh.
No. I have done this. I do it all the time, and my guys will have to call me and say, "Hey, look, man, you're going overboard with these forms here, dude. The Service Titan forms are awesome, but you're killing me with them." So no, it's so what can we do? Like, what's the solution? Like, we're like, say I'm just rolling around and I'm like, we have, like, I've done the math. I don't like I'm like an ostrich. Like, if I don't pay attention, then I know it's, I don't really know what the problem is, but like, I kind of feel like it's going to be like an $85, $89 average ticket price. What can I do? What's the solution to that?
Yeah. And so it really is a multi-prong approach when you're looking at, and the question you're asking me is if we've got a low average ticket, or how do we continue to grow that, right?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. There's a lot of different ways.
Much better job of asking herself that question than Tersh did.
It's just the coach coming out of me, right? It's to seek to understand kind of thing. Yeah. So really, I kind of go back to it. I think back at the time of being an owner and really understanding my why. What is the purpose of my company? And again, going back to like your core values. But from there, it takes, like I mentioned, a multi-prong approach to training. And it might be multiple things, but yet the sooner you get the technicians involved in any aspect of something you're trying to roll out, whether it's an accessory program or your maintenance program, and having them to be a part of that building out phase, that's like one part of it. But if you've got your programs already built out and you're bringing on new techs, and let's say that one technician is struggling, we definitely recommend, the weekly team meeting, right? Because they can learn and hear from each other, sharing best practices amongst the team. Now, loves role playing. Let's just face it, right? Nobody loves that, but certainly you do. I know I shouldn't say that because that is in an extreme. But getting into like the depths of training, is to try to change up the words a little bit, because sometimes that can be very intimidating. But as someone in leadership should be laying out a training outline multiple weeks, in advance, or at least a month out, right? So they know very specifically, but you can't make it long and drawn out. Do not have a meeting for 2 hours. I'm talking it's your 30 to 45 minutes. It's like a shot in the arm, talk about a topic, let the other techs share their wahoos. But one of the best trainings I ever did on skills training and sitting with a client is I just said, tell me a little bit about, this electronic air cleaner. And I just took something like a yellow pad and I wrote feature and benefit, just something as basic as this, right? Just tell me about, the T thing. It's like, just tell me about this product. They started talking, and then, then tell me what you really like about this product. How does it help people? And once they started talking, the dispatcher said, "Oh, I get it now," or "I really love how he said that," because maybe the other guy is very analytical and doesn't really convey the message in that way. So you start small, you get into the group, you create that safe environment where people can talk. And I remember the owner saying, when are we going to get into role playing? I'm like, well, we've already been doing it.
Yeah.
And your team has talked more this hour than any other time, and so that's the importance of creating that safe place where they can all talk and share. And then certainly you can elevate other team members who are doing something well, and they explain how they greet the client or bring out the accessory brochure. So training definitely from that level weekly. And then the best training too that you can do is the one-on-ones. And I highly recommend that a service manager meet with technicians at least once per week to help them establish some personal goals, and then back in and show how by increasing the average ticket, there could be additional spiffs or bonuses involved depending on how their compensation structure is set up.
Yeah, I
With
like
those
that.
one-on-ones, Tammy, do you coach your service managers or even owner, if they doesn't have a service manager, to do ride-alongs? And if so, how often do you usually recommend that?
Yeah, love the ride-alongs, and they should definitely, and certainly you kind of play it out based upon performance, but you still shouldn't neglect the top performer either, right? Because team members like to be with the leaders. You don't want to do that. Plus, sometimes when you look at the amount of time that's spent with somebody who's really a top performer, a little extra attention can compound the effect of or continue that success. But working with the maybe the lower performer, definitely a couple times a month, right? So you've got your one-on-one meeting, and then you're hopping in the truck. That windshield time creates a lot of opportunity to have a very open discussion that is not threatening. But it's like you can plant the seeds for things, and then you can also debrief specifically on the calls. And we have a checklist, a ride-along checklist that managers can use. And they use that to guide the conversation and the things that they should be looking for too.
Plus, you also get to see, how amazingly clean they keep the vans and dashboards and the back, how well organized it is. So great too.
Huge. That's a pet peeve for me too. Like Angela, if you see that van not, and I mean, honestly, it's someone else's vehicle, we should take good care of that, but it's a good sign of how efficient they are, with the ability to find their materials. So yeah.
I have a follow-up to that, because in my experience, and this was even when I was running my own branch, I knew ride-alongs were important. However, I found many other things to take precedence over those, and kind of, kick the can, until it got bad enough where it was usually someone that was pissing me off, and I was like, what is going on? I got to ride with you. But what would you so what do you recommend for those who they know, they've heard it, they've seen it, they've been told? How do you recommend they start doing that? Because there's obviously some difficulties, because it's very awkward at first, because it's not the normal day, and your team members are going to feel like, oh, they're watching over my big brother's watching over my shoulder. So what do you recommend for people to get started, to start doing that one-on-one coaching during the day on their calls?
Yeah. So a couple things. If you do the one-on-one meetings, you should have an agenda, right? Very specific items. When you're sitting, it's like after a service meeting, one technician stays back, and you have your agenda. You're talking about, their wins, their actual performance. And then you're also establishing some type of personal goal, so you understand what motivates them, because money doesn't always motivate a technician, right? It could be a trip, it could be accolades. There are so many things, right? But once you find out really what motivates that person, then when you move into, if I'm the manager or the owner and I hesitate to do the ride-alongs, really having that checklist, and what do you really want to get accomplished on that? And you have to be not bare your soul, but you have to be very transparent with them and say, hey, look, I'm here to support you. This is not Big Brother. Even when I've done ride-alongs during on-sites, I tell the technicians, because they're always like, I don't want her to ride with me, or even on the sales side, right? But once they see that, hey, had those same battle scars, I've had the same troubles that you've had, but I'm here to support you. Have to have those open conversations. And I have to tell you, though, it's still going to come back down to leadership. You got to have some type of discipline.
Yeah.
Right. Or if I'm an owner and my manager is not doing it, then really it still goes back to leadership, having some discipline to stay focused on that.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's definitely one of those things where, like I did a ride along on Monday, and I think it was Monday, might have been Tuesday. Yeah, right. Yeah, one of those days. I feel like they're all running together, but it wasn't that we had an issue at all with this service expert. It was a situation to where he went out on this call, and it was technical, like a technical thing that I noticed during his debrief forms, and service call checklist, that he just flat out missed it, and it's not a normal situation, and so I was like, "All right, let's go back out here." I had the dispatcher, um, reschedule the service call, no charge or anything like that, and go back through the whole process with him, and being on site with him and watching him go through the service call checklist, he was like, "Oh yeah, this is piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake." But I always struggle right here. And I'm like, okay, good to know, because I didn't know that that's where you struggle, because I just, I brush right over that because I've been doing this since 2005. And so he, and then I noticed that he didn't carry the proper tools up to the attic when he went into the attic. And I carried my own tool bag. Like I keep a tool bag that it constantly gets depleted by technicians, but I try and keep it stock. And so I carried my tool bag up there, and he didn't carry the tools that he needed. So then I was like, "Look, man, see how many times you're having to go downstairs to your van?" I'm like, "I have it all sitting right here. Like, let's just bust this job out." And we have all the information, the data, take lots of photos, and then we're sharing stuff. And so then we wrapped up the call. We had so much more data and information for the homeowner, along with tons of photos and videos. This homeowner is actually in the military and is overseas right now. We're able to send these videos to this homeowner with their invoice. And so I was like, this is what I expect you to do on every single service call. And look, you know, we typically want you to do an hour and a half long diagnosis, and this has taken us 45 minutes. I was like, you can build rapport the rest of the time, if that's what you do. And so it's one of those things where it's like, as long as you're efficient with certain things, then you can spend more time doing other things. And I feel like it's similar with like, just even in your average ticket price. Because if we're scheduling calls, or like we have a truck stock that's not stocked properly, and we're constantly going back and rescheduling calls, our average ticket price is going to be lower. We made 3 visits there because we didn't have a fan motor, we didn't have a capacitor, we had to reschedule. And so like our average ticket price is just going down, 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 down. And so it's like, just those little things that you don't really think about until you inspect it. You can't expect what you don't inspect, and you can't measure it if you inspect it. So
100%. And sometimes it just might be that little nugget that helps them become more efficient at the technical aspect. And they love that. They're like, oh, I could do that. Right. Mm-hmm. And be able to make their day that much better. But I'm 100% in agreement with you when you go back. And that's why when we were talking earlier, we have to look at ourselves as in our dispatching roles, service management roles, are we booking those calls to the best of our abilities to make them efficient? Because there's things that the technicians don't have control over. You got a high drive time. How many more tickets could they get in that day? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So that getting back to those efficiencies, like what you're referencing, become so critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is like a super deep topic, because average ticket usually focuses on the technician, but if you look at it, you kind of step back. Did the dispatcher schedule efficiently? Did we book calls and move things around the board the right way? How well trained is our team so they're not forgetting them fan motor? Are they making sure their tools are with them? It's just such a deep topic. But one more question for you. It's a pretty simple one. Because sometimes the people that really get into average ticket look at it almost too much, like day by day type of thing. Like it drives them crazy. Like my average ticket's super low today. Do you have like a kind of a happy medium of how often they should really be looking at this, so they're not over analyzing these numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are you thinking that's from the manager's perspective or the technician becoming obsessed about their average ticket?
Both.
Okay.
Could be both.
That's okay. So that's the thing, is that if you have clear goals, right? And from a technician perspective, explaining to them, the targeted number of calls that we're looking to have them run, a revenue per truck goal, but really backing into very specifics, accessory sales, units. You don't always have to go to dollars, because sometimes, if somebody's selling an easy trap, and they're including those on every single call, that's a win. I don't want to penalize somebody because they just aren't offering the electronic air cleaner or something, but because a lot of that has to do with confidence. But getting over there to the specific and getting too obsessed. If I'm a manager, I need to watch my numbers daily. Can I watch them by the hour? Sure. Depending on your software, but if you have to know exactly where you're at each day, and then be able to understand, the next day, did we win or lose? Where are our opportunities? And if you focus on the journey of that, because to me, if you got too obsessed with the average ticket, you're going to miss a whole boatload of things, like what Tersh said earlier. In that ride along, he was able to uncover where the tech missed that step. And really, when you make it about delivering that, and I hate to just use that word value, but when you're really delivering everything that you promise, if you focus on that, the average ticket's going to come up. So it kind of really just goes back down to your culture, your processes, your ongoing training, and actually staying consistent. And I think that's where leadership misses the boat, is they don't stay consistent enough on these things to follow up and to follow through. So
I feel like staying consistent is like the key to life. Like if you just broke it down to one thing, just be consistent. Whether it's consistently good or bad, you'll be able to make adjustments based off of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to be a service manager. I mean, there's a lot of balls that you're juggling and things to watch. But if someone's becoming so obsessed, then I'd want to know why. Why are you so obsessed with why are you just so obsessed with this aspect? Are you missing the boat? Because when you're not investing back into those technicians, and they know that they're just a number to you. Now, I'm just as revenue driven as the next person, perhaps, right? Love to chase that, love to pursue that. But if I do that at the expense of being so obsessed, I have to coach to it, I have to manage to it, then your team is not going to follow you, because they're going to know that you're not as invested in them. They're going to know that you don't care, honestly.
Yeah, you really do. They become a number, and no matter what you do, like if like every time I have a conversation with someone, like I got to a point to where it's like, I'm looking at numbers, and everybody knows I'm looking at numbers, but I'm not a micromanager. But it was very much a situation to where it was like, all right, that's not going to make sense to Tersh. Like as soon as I heard that the first time, I was like, oh man, I got to be careful of this. I have to make sure that they understand that there's a reason why I want them to know these numbers is to help them. Yeah.
But see, you went into the why though, and you explained it. And then that's where managing to the numbers is so critical. You have to do that. But at some point as a manager or leader, you should have some type of composure on how you demonstrate your actions in front of your team. Use it to guide it, because numbers aren't lying, right? It's a science.
100%.
They tell us something, but what do they really tell us? They're telling us about the opportunities.
Yeah.
The opportunities to improve in our skill sets, or offering accessories, or whatever the item is. But they tell a story. I think it's wonderful to utilize them for that reason.
Yeah. So if we want to learn more about you, if somebody's listening to the show and they want to learn more about you and the BDR in general, what's the best way for them to reach out and learn more?
Yeah. So our website's very encompassing, so if that's a first step and they just want to kind of get familiar with a lot of the different products and services that we have, but once they call in, we have a great support team, that will connect them with one of our advisors to talk in more depth about the coaching programs, because there's so many, and then also be able to share the training classes as well, so they understand. And a lot of times clients come to classes first and utilize some of that training, and then they join coaching, or vice versa, or they do both at the same time.
Cool. Josh, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think it's like anything, right? You guys have to take the first step. And I think taking the first step with talking to someone at BDR, especially if you either maybe you've tried other coaching programs and it didn't work out for you, or you're looking to start getting some coaching just because you don't know the direction your business needs to go. I think BDR has been around a long time. They have a very good reputation. If you see in these Facebook groups, they get recommended quite a bit. So it'd definitely be worth reaching out to BDR and seeing what they can offer for your business.
Thank you. I appreciate that vote of confidence. Our team, the advisors, do a great job in being able to break down the steps to really help the client understand where their opportunities are, and then from there, the coach takes it and develops the coach plan once they join. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show today with us, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Tammy, her whole team over there at BDR, bdrco.com. We'll actually add all the contact information in the show notes. And then if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. But with that being said, thank you for listening to or watching this episode of the Service Business Mastery Podcast. It is a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. Our goal with this show is to help answer some unasked questions, and I hope that we did that today. There's a lot of unasked questions that pertain to average ticket prices and just knowing your numbers. And a lot of times we just like I said, stick your head in the sand because I'd rather we have money in the checking account, so we're good. So, but anyways, I hope you have a wonderful and safe weekend. We'll talk again next time. See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.